touch anything. It's the greatest find yet. Nothing compares to it.
But it's definitely something you should hear.
This is The Real Deal with Larry Lawton.
Welcome to The Real Deal with me, Larry Lawton. We got a great show today on this hot Monday. We are going to be talking with a very good friend of mine and a judge right here in this county, Brevard County Court Judge David Silverman. David, welcome to the show.
I'm pleased to be here, Larry. Thank you.
You are, Dave, you and I go back a long way, so we're going to have a good show. Before I get started with that, one, we got to thank our sponsors, Oliva Cigar. They are here for every show. They take care of us. Their CEO has been on this show. He came up from Miami to come on this show. We're going to have their COO come up in the next month. They're really good. The cigars are doing great, and they're really, premium cigars. They're all over now. It's great. We love it. We ship them all over the world. I've shipped them to Australia, shipped them to England, shipped them Brazil. I think a lot of countries I shipped them already, which is pretty wild. Also, everybody, check out Gangster Redemption. It is still going, and if you want it signed, you can do that. Just make sure you email me when you get it, and then I will sign it for you. We have a couple of hot deals coming out I told you guys about. We found in the vault, we're calling it the vault, we did a big cleaning, and we found some numbered copies from the original ones. I mean, really like number 12, number 19, and they can't be done. They have a different cover. They have the limited edition ones. They're pretty cool. So, and everybody, Crooked Diamond Cigars, helps us is Oliva Cigars. And Oliva Cigars has, they're the third largest cigar company in the world, and they backed me. And they are amazing people. And the cigars are great. We got great feedback from all over. And we love that. We have brand ambassadors now. We have a brand ambassador in Chicago, one up in Rhode Island, one in California. So we have one here in Clearwater, Florida, not Clearwater, a little south of Clearwater, Florida. And he's another guy's named Nick, too. Good guy. So we're doing great things, Dave. You always sit. Let's get right into Dave. Dave Silverman, let me give you a little background on Judge Silverman. Judge Silverman, he's going to explain how we met. And we really are good friends. We go out to his dinner with his wife and I when I had a girl at that time. But that happens, but we'd go to movies. That's a funny story. His wife won't go to movies with me anymore. Hi, Michelle. Anyway, we stayed friends. Even if I don't talk to him in a month or two, it doesn't matter. When I see him, I feel like it's old time week. We go to court. We debate the law a lot. You know about as you say, who knows the federal law better than me, Dave?
Larry, you're very versed in that.
I had to be. It saved my life. Well, Dave has been a judge since 1999, 24 years, man.
I was elected in 1998 and took office in January of 1999.
Wow.
Over 24 years, and Larry, I was reelected last year without opposition for a new 6-year term.
Wow, so I know we talked about this. I remember when the term limits were there, and then they lifted the term limit. You kind of like just beat the term limit thing, didn't you?
There was a change in the Florida Constitution. And as a result of that, the retirement age was extended to 75. And so before you had to leave office if you were going to reach the retirement age of 70 before half your term was over. Now, I got another term as a result.
Well, that I think is great. I mean, obviously, you know what they always say, the new 50s, the new 40, and all that. I know, because I don't count 12 years of my life. I consider that vacation time. Not really, but we talked, and it's funny how people from two different sides of the world, and I know people are going to be interested in that. Here I was a career criminal, and Judge Silverman has been a resounding lawyer, and I'm going to give you a little bit of his background. Judge Silverman went to Stetson University.
No, Emory.
Emory, but you were Stetson first?
I was I graduated from Emory University in Atlanta for my undergraduate work. Then I lived in Chicago. My father was a lawyer there. He was representing seamen and longshoremen who were injured loading and unloading ships at the port of Chicago.
So he was an ambulance chaser on a boat.
Well, I had intended to practice there myself, and so I went back to law school. That was the theory, was that you should go to law school where you intend to practice. I went to Loyola Law School there in Chicago, but by the time I'd finished there, my folks had moved down to Florida. And I was visiting them when I got to love the place here in, moved to Cocoa Beach. And I joined them there I'd passed the Illinois bar and then came down here, took the Florida bar, and began practicing here at the state attorney's office.
Yeah, so you were with the state attorney and then the public defender?
Well, I worked my way up the state attorney's office.
And you handled capital cases,
Well, I
didn't you?
did. I mean, I started as a misdemeanor attorney and then worked my way to be a felony division chief, supervising other attorneys handling the most serious sorts of cases, including murder and other serious prosecutions, which I handled as well, death penalty cases. But I then went into private practice. I worked with a firm and doing some criminal, because I held a conflict contract representing folks charged with cases where the public defender had to withdraw from representing them. And then after being on my own for a while, I joined the public defender's office in their capital division, representing folks charged with first-degree murder and a variety of sexual battery that carried a mandatory life sentence.
How long were you there at that division where you were handling capital cases defense-wise?
About 5 years.
Here's a question. Has anybody ever been put to death on your watch?
No, sir. I'll tell you, I was avoided some serious situations. I was just fortunate, and in a sense, I got out because it's just a matter of time. If you keep doing that you're bound to have somebody.
Yeah.
Because there are very fine lawyers I know of who had clients who were convicted and sentenced to death.
That's got to be rough. I don't care what you tell me. And, you know, it's funny, Dave, because we know there's a case right now going on, Grosley Green, and I've had a guy named Torres on the show. And that case just is full of a lot of holes. I mean, I looked at cases. I used to do stuff for the Innocent Project, and I testified in court. Especially, I also testified in court with the cases that people went back to prison when they were juveniles. If you remember when the federal law was changed under that. I forget the case, the Miller case? No, the Miller case was the
Graham
the Graham case. And they would go back because they found it unconstitutional to sentence somebody under 18 to life without parole, without a specific hearing.
Without automatically.
Right. So, and I used to go interview the young people, and then after I interviewed them, I would, find out how they are, where their maturity level, because we all know brains don't develop until a lot older. So, anyway, I think it's so amazing that, the defense attorneys to me are so important in our thing. And my argument with the state and against the feds, state and defense, the state has all the money in the world, obviously, or the feds, whatever you want to call it. I think if you have a public defender, that office should have the exact same resources that the state has to make it a little bit more fair. You know as well as I do, William Kennedy Smith, who had a case on Ubar, if you remember the case, and I remember it pretty well down in West Palm Beach, and a rape case, and he won the case because they had $250,000 to hire a jury specialist who picked the right jury. And then Mike Tyson has his case. He goes to jail. Not that he didn't have the money, but they didn't have the right attorneys. Because I'm a big believer in attorneys mean a lot. And you know that, Dave, as well as I do. We talk about attorneys all the time. And we know some really good ones. And we know some bad ones. I'm not going to mention names. This is not that kind of show. We don't do that here. But I just think it's important that every defendant gets a fair shake.
I agree with that. I mean, everyone should get a fair shake. The fact of the matter is that when you're on the defense side, it involves yourself, your wits, your advocacy, more so because you often don't have the same resources. So it involves your...
But do you think that's fair?
I mean, ingenuity on your part.
But I get it. You're 100% right. But why is that fair? I mean, they gave lawyers. I remember the case was actually was a Florida case for getting lawyers, right? To have I forget. Man, am I getting old? I used to know that stuff off the top of my head. When you don't practice or you don't do stuff and you don't read the law every day, it was a Florida case that every man needed an attorney. That's the case that went to the Supreme Court, if you remember that.
Well, the right to counsel is in the Sixth Amendment of the
Right.
Constitution. Now, our founding fathers knew that all these other rights, all the cherished rights of the Bill of Rights they don't mean much unless you have a lawyer to help protect them when you go to court. And so that was considered to be a very fundamental sort of thing, although I will tell you there have been some rumblings about changing that precedent, as you may have heard.
I have, and I think it's just like the gun law. You hear those rumblings. It's not going to happen. That's the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments, not the 27 we have. And obviously, they're the most important because that's who the forefathers put down.
So what you do in our system is you get meaningful, effective counsel. And if that can be accomplished, Larry,
With a paralegal.
with less money being spent on it, then that's what the public would expect.
Dave, see, and Judge, I'm going to go against that so bad. Why don't we just cut the cost of prisons and private prisons and the money we spend? I can go on and on about that number. And if we are the most incarcerated country in the world, period. Not even per capita anymore. So, I mean, that alone, we are the third most populous country, with India or China now, and then the United States. And we're at 350, 60 million people. And they're at 1.4 billion. And we have more people incarcerated than them. I mean, think of that. That's just ludicrous. We got 5 times more people or 4 times more people than us. And we have more people incarcerated. I don't get that.
Let me say this, Larry. When I was a prosecutor, and I think that this is a mindset, is that you want to focus in on those persons who are bad actors, on cases with bad facts,
Right.
and the sometimes what that involved was paying close attention to those. And if some of the other cases had let some of the little fish go, that was okay, because you were doing what society would expect from you. And so if you're focusing your attention on those cases, you can really do some good, I believe, for society. But on the other hand, I agree, there's some people who may not really belong in jail.
We could.
But I'm saying that you have what prosecutions and judges do is they discern the difference between those people who merit some consideration beyond what was the bare minimum, and somebody who would be really, they need to be cooped up.
Obviously, I was in prison for a long time. You know that, and there's people I always say that do not belong to be on the streets. I often say that, and people say, "Oh, Larry, you're very..." No, I'm actually, I'd be a pretty good juror because I think I'd be a fair juror. On that case, we're going to tell how we met first, and then I have a case because we're gonna debate something here, and you don't know what's coming, and I like that when I can do that to you, and we do this all the time. People think this is funny. The judge and I will go out to dinner with his wives, and we would start debating the law. I mean, all the time, and he knows I know what I'm talking about, so it's not like he's taking advantage of me. But I also say this: Judge Silverman is probably the most astute and one of the smartest legal minds as a judge that I know. And I'm not just saying that, Judge. You are. I mean, I've checked you. I've come back and looked up stuff online just to check you.
Well, we've had a couple debates, and subsequent to that, I remember one case vividly where the appellate court ruled in favor of what your position was.
I won you on that case.
We can talk about that too.
No, we can. That was a great case because I still believe that it went above what I believed that they were going to do. Do you remember that?
I do.
I said 1, and they said 2. And the judge used to sign the warrants for that.
Well, I think I can talk about that practice.
Let's first, before you start that, I want to tell, how did we meet? Tell the people how we met.
Well, okay, I don't really play golf very well. I claim to play golf. I'm not a very good golfer.
You're not, but you got a good swing.
So I was out at there are charity tournaments like every weekend here, and in Brevard County and elsewhere as well. And so I was at a sheriff's police athletic league tournament, and I couldn't, as a judge, require or invite even other lawyers to join with me. I didn't want them to feel leverage. So
conflict of interest.
So they had all the people who were didn't have a team who were just on their own. They put them together into carts, and so you were in the same boat, and I wound up in a cart with Larry.
He
And
gets with me.
So there's this big guy with his tattoos, and he's sitting there next to me, and I would say Larry's actually was larger then than he
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot larger.
than he is now. And so, I was wondering. I was asked him, "What do you do?" And so he told me that he had a rehabilitation program, and he was really a good golfer. I mean, he was swinging. I said, where do you, what you talking about his experience? He said he had been in prison, federal prison. I said it must have been a really liberal prison that had some golf course or some pro on staff there. So anyway, he was. He gave me a video. In those days, it was a CD.
Right, exactly. CD. Wow. Goes to show you how long we're doing this. A CD.
And he said, "You want to try this out?" So at the time, I had a high school intern who was with me just for the summer, and he was I was trying to find some things for him to do, and so I brought it back, and I watched like 5 minutes of it, and I had to go back into court, and so I said to him, "Nathaniel, could you go ahead and finish watching this? Just finish it, and let me know what you think." Because he had this rehabilitation program, and apparently what I had gathered at that point is that Larry had started that after being advised that, geez, you had something to convey to kids from your experience, and so I thought this could be possibly valuable. I'd have my intern take a look at this, and so I got done with court, and he'd watched it. It was over an hour.
It's in about an hour and 6 minutes. You're right.
And so I said, "Well, what do you think, Nathaniel?" He said, I remember what he told me. He said, "There's some movies that you see, you can't remember the name of them a week later, And there are others, like The Exorcist, that leave you with graphic images for the rest of your life. And that's what this is like. This is really compelling. And okay, well, that's good. That might have an impact." And so what I did was I began, as part of it, I had occasion where it was appropriate to send some people to Larry's rehabilitation program. But what I did was I sent them there with a return date. In order for them to fulfill the requirements of this, they had to return back and tell me about the program to see whether it was successful or not, and what they thought of it. I didn't know, and so they came back and they were positive. I mean, they kept referring to Larry Lawton by his first name, and they were saying that as though they knew him. They felt that somebody had really, really understood them and really was able to address their problems. And of course, part of it was the example. I mean, a lot of these kids, they were starting out from a deficit position. I mean, they're broken homes, or they're at the trailer park, or there are other problems, financial problems and personal problems and medical problems, family problems in their life. And here's this guy who came out of prison, and he's making something of himself. Geez, if he can do it, I can't. Maybe I can't too. And so it gave them some hope. And so I said, well, this is good. So I began to, I thought this was a worthwhile thing, and I passed that along to the judges. We all chat, and then I that was a regular part of the because Larry came and talked to the prosecutors. I couldn't do it obviously without their having really
Initiating,
including that,
sure.
right, initiating it, including it as part of their plea bargains.
Well, do you know the original person who sentenced anybody to that program was Judge Reinman, and actually she didn't care who did it. She heard that I talked to kids, and she ended up, I get a call from Jean Bandish, and you know her,
Sure.
and she says, after I present her to the case and stuff, she goes, she said, Jean at that time, Mr. Lawton, or maybe she called me Larry, I forget. She said, I got to give you a heads up. Judge Ryman sentenced 2 people to your program. What program? I mean, this is the original start, and obviously, it's gone. We are now in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, West Palm Beach. We are in Florida getting more. I unfortunately can't do the program time-wise, but we do have it on video. We have tests that verify they watched it and taken it, and survey. We have a whole bunch of fail safes that they have to do. Of course, their parent could do it for them, but that can happen anyway. A guy could come in with a false ID. What am I, an ID checker? So it can happen. But we do have a very, very big success rate and still do. And we love that. I love that. That's part of what I like to do most. I did something. I love my videos. I love helping people, even in the videos. I emphasize every video. Come on, make choices. We can have fun. Make good choices, man. You don't belong to go where I went because you don't. A lot of people won't survive that. You know that.
Larry, it's a very valuable thing because, as a judge, what you do is you decide individual cases. But if you can help children, avoid problems and avoid criminal conduct, you can help improve lives throughout the state for years to come.
It's such a what you just said. It's like a snowballing effect. We're doing the parenting program. Matter of fact, the judge volunteered to come. We'll give him whatever he wanted, but he's going to be one of the speakers on what a judge actually looks, because he deals with that. You just came out of truancy court, didn't you?
I did. I handled that last week.
And what is that like? Do you see? I mean, do they still have truancy like I think of it back in the day?
I think it's a very difficult, it's almost insoluble sort of problem from the bench, because you have children whose lives have so many influences on them, and they're not going to school for a number of different reasons. So how do you
How do you help a kid who wants to go eat and work?
Right. How do you fashion something that can help each one of these kids individually? Well, they had people from the school board. They had some social workers. They had a school board attorney there. Other folks to try to arrange something to get these kids back into school. And of course, there are some other options. I mean, there's virtual school now that they may be able to do, but they're in talking to them. I was so affected really by the challenges that they had, and my inability from the bench to really make a difference in their lives, as you would be able to do better off. Judges are not social workers.
No, I get that, but when you look at a kid that comes in front of you for truancy, and he might have some other charges, burglary or whatever it is, a mischief, I don't know, vandalism, whatever it is. Obviously, I know you very well. You have a heart, and you care about people collectively, period. Both sides, you care about the victim. You care about the kids that are doing this, and you're always trying to help somebody get on, because we all make mistakes. This is life. I don't care who you are. You make mistakes. I don't care. I don't care if it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump. They're both, well, that was the easy one. They both make mistakes, and we all make mistakes. So when you look at these guys, Dave, do you want to hear from the parents? How much does the parents? That's why we're doing a parenting program, to see how the parents can turn their lives around and try to help the kids, even when they don't have the resources. Because there's a lot of times it's not about money. It's about knowledge. It's about knowing where to get the resources. They're working all the time. They're working 2 jobs. They don't have time to get on the internet and find out something that some other parents do.
Larry, that's what I found, generally speaking, was that parents were wanting their kids to go to school. They were trying, but sometimes they just didn't have the resources, the skills to be able to motivate their child to go to school.
What about grandparents? Did you deal with a lot of grandparents raising grandkids?
I had one.
I know that organization. I speak of.
No, I had one, and so I remember this a really feisty little lady who so I asked her, how are you going to motivate your granddaughter, who she had custody of, to go to school? And she said, well, I'm going to take a broom and beat her with an inch of her life. I said, no, that's not really what we want to.
She said that to you in court?
Yes, but okay, that's what that she meant well, and what she meant was she was going to
beat her with a broom.
No, she was going to threaten her, I think, but she wanted.
Don't mess with those old ladies. Trust me, those old ladies are tough.
She wasn't serious about that. I knew that, but on the other hand, what it also suggested was she didn't have a real strategy for dealing with this, which I think I can understand that, and because it's a difficult problem for parents and for judges and for everybody involved.
That's exactly what I look at, Dave. That young people or parents or period. Just the reason we're doing the parenting program, we're finding out, and all the speakers we're going to have, like a prosecutor, a criminal defense attorney, a police chief, a psychologist, myself. We all deal with kids in some way or another, all of us, in different parts of a court system or a system. And I think parents need to see and get as much information as they can to do the best they can. Because what I've found is people say, well, what do I do? I said, well, if it gets to the attorney side, you better know what to do there because that's another level that a kid can get ruined. And the prosecutors, most people want to help kids. But then you get some that don't. And I don't mean that to say don't. They just don't. They're hardened by the system, whether it's cops or judges or stuff. Obviously, I know you very well, and you've been there 24 years, which is a feat in of itself. Me, I think I would make a good judge. What do you think?
Oh, I think you'd be a very insightful judge. I think with judges, as I say, in terms of judging, you need to get a sense of what the problems are for this individual, for this child, and then to fashion something that addresses that problem. And so it involves a certain amount of insight, and that's why judges in family court often get the advice of social workers or other family court evaluators or other people
advocates and
correct
stuff like that.
so as to gain some insight into this, because the same thing can be given to both two children, and one would have a profound effect and the other's like water off a duck's back.
Dave, that happens with families. The parents wanted me, I got 3 kids, 2 of them are just probably, we raised them all exactly alike, and this kid's, out of control. Or what do you, but there's always something I find usually when I'm talking to them. Maybe they got a little lazy, maybe they a little spoiled, maybe they got more stuff before you know. One parent was telling me, I lost my kid. I end up finding out the kid gets $300 a week allowance. He rides around in an Escalade, and he had daddy's credit card. And he wonders why his kid's doing drugs. Well, guess what? He can afford them. And I tried to tell the dad, did you make this money that you, very wealthy man, did you make this money, like, was it given to you? He goes, no, I work hard. I said, why don't you we set up a whole program for him. Did good. Hey, had planes. This guy was very, very wealthy. And he ended up bringing his kid to work. He ended up bringing him in meetings, showing his kid that he still works. He comes in at 7 in the morning every morning. He owned a building in Manhattan. And the guy goes, man, I didn't think, but the problem, and I found this out now, I don't work with individual families unless I work with the parents too. Because a lot of times the parents are, well, can I say this nice? I said I wouldn't curse on this. They're fucked up, Dave. But the first time I said that, and I'm not saying it. You know me. I have the biggest heart in the world too. And I just want to see them do the right thing by everybody.
See, I'm not sure, Larry, that I think it may just be a lack of skills for some of them.
Absolutely.
For the most part, I really believe that they want to do well by their children. And so because look, I saw guys, I represented folks who had done horrible things. And one thing that they wanted to avoid was their children growing up thinking they were some kind of jerk. I mean, it doesn't matter if they were knocking over a bank. They wanted their child to think that they were a good person. So
right.
they
wanted to be friends with their kid
right.
instead of being a parent.
That is true. But they identify that as being a parent. And so I think they really want to have a good legacy of having their children be successful, contributing members of our community. And so the question is how they best can do that. And I think that they're willing. I mean, I don't think it's what you're saying is that they have some inability themselves to be able to accomplish that, but I think they can to some extent. I think that it's like
I totally believe what you're saying. But what happens in my view in dealing with a lot of parents is this: I have to tell the parent, I go, "Who's the parent here?" Meaning, they want to be more of a friend, but not just that way is because kids grow up sometimes more in the streets than the parents did ever, and then the kids are actually more street smart at 16 and 15 than the parent ever was. Now the parent went on, did good in school, did great, and now the kid just happened to run into some kids at school, different place, and the kid becomes more of a street smart kid, which is okay because I believe street smarts is a very important tool to have as well as being academically smart. To be a communicator is what I call really being a street kid because I don't care who you are, you can get beat up. I don't care how tough you are because I've been around those kind of people and I've been myself tough as well as I am. But it wasn't my toughness that survived me in prison. It was my wit and it was my seeing things before they happen, being street smart and recognizing things. And kids do that better than parents sometimes. And then they manipulate the parents. And I gotta grab the parents sometimes by the shoulder and say, listen, you pay the freaking bills around here. You're the boss. And then what do you, oh, but I'm scared they're gonna call the police. Tell them to call it. Oh, when I hear that one, I said, I wish my kid would have told me that. I'd have knocked him through the wall. But I have friends of mine that said, I wish my kid would say that. I've actually had parents say to me, Larry, can you talk to my kid? And I go, but what happened? He goes, you can do anything. You want to beat them? Beat them. I said, I don't do that anyway. I never would hit a kid. You know that. I got very, very good control about my wits. And now a parent or an adult, I might hit them.
Well, I agree. You avoid that sort of situation by having good communication with your child. So that involves developing trust with them, demonstrating that you really care about them, so that they want to be friends with them. On the other hand, they can't just be giving in to every whim that the child wants in doing that. So how then do parents negotiate? How do they navigate the tension between wanting to be overly friendly with them and wanting to have a good relationship and communicate with them? So that the goal of parents is to achieve that. And you got to remember, parents didn't have all the same temptations. They didn't. Well, not all. The drugs are all different.
Communications, internet, phones, it can go on and on.
There are all sorts of influences on their children they know very little about and didn't experience themselves. So
but I think you're giving them a cop out to a degree. I talk to elderly people who have kids teenage age. Listen, get with it. You might not like it, but get with it.
I agree. They have to learn. Parents have to, in order to care about something, you got to learn about it.
Absolutely. So, when we discussed picking the crew for the big parenting event in August, it's August, and we talked about you. I said, your even keeledness, in my opinion, is one of the best on the bench. I mean, I watch you. You don't get upset. You think things through. You're very, very methodical. I know you very well, and all the lawyers know you well too. But you're methodical, and obviously the brains is there. But I've golfed with you. I've seen you under stress. I've seen you with kids, and I'll tell you why. I ran a golf outing in here for many years, and Judge Silverman was one of the people who went to the golf. Now, listen, he's got to tell you a story.
I remember that vividly because I remember when you were first doing that, you wanted me to help out, and I was going to go out with a number of at-risk kids. There were going to be 2 foursomes and me.
How I set it up was, let me give you a base.
Sure.
What I did, the golf outing was really a threefold event, meaning I wanted to pair kids who've never touched the golf club, inner city kids. They think everybody's on a golf course is a privileged man. And I wanted to pair them with a judge, a prosecutor, a police officer, somebody of authority that they deal with on occasion, always in a negative way. So I wanted to pair them. And now what I found later doing this, it actually helped the judges, the prosecutors, the police, because they're seeing these kids in innocent positions, not just that kid who stole or something at a Walmart, or not that kid who just had a fight and hit somebody with a stick like I did when I was a kid. But what I'm getting at now, emphasize what happened to you.
Actually, I think there's a certain amount of risk in doing that because we're taking some kids who are at risk, and some of the things that might put them at risk might have been felons in the adult system.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you're giving them something really frustrating to do, playing golf and arming them with golf sticks and having a judge right nearby here. So
that is funny when you think about it.
Let's
put them right in the danger zone.
But so I had this little group, and so we're going to go out to the range first to hit a few balls to get a sense of how they could do this. So first kid steps up, and you're right, they had no experience doing this at all. So he steps up and he hits the ball out there. He starts running after the ball on the driving range. Whoa, wait a minute, come on. This is this was a new experience for them, and so they were hitting the ball, but you could see I'm not a great golfer, but I will tell you, I think I'm a better teacher than I am a golfer out there. I had some simple things to tell them as to what they were doing, and they were growing in confidence and hitting it better as we were going along. And I could see that they were getting some sense of accomplishment.
Well, you said to me, because at the end of the event, we would give out bicycles and stuff and toys, and people would speak. And Judge Silverman spoke one time. I remember what he said about kids going in the woods and how you explained that was amazing.
We did that. I mean, I was out there with the group, and so one of the kids, and they hit it a long way, but we were way out in the woods somewhere. So we're all out trying to find the ball, and so then we find it. And of course, this is a kid who they have some impulse control problems, and so I said, okay, the issue here is not whether you're going to hit it in the woods. Everybody's going to hit it in trouble.
Tiger Woods hits it in trouble.
Everybody gets in trouble in life. Okay, so that's not the question. Is whether it's going to happen. That's going to happen to you. The question is, how are you going to deal with this? Are you going to throw the clubs and pout? You're going to cheat, move the ball, pick it up, or are you going to stand up to this thing, take your best swing, and try and get this back in the fairway? The question is, how are you going to respond to it? So what are you going to do? And sure enough, he hit it back on there, and he kept going. And so I didn't really think much of that until I got in the clubhouse later on. And I heard him, because it's like a hackneyed sports analogy, And so I overheard him talking to another kid and saying, everybody gets in trouble. He was telling them that same story about things. And so, look.
That has gone on, I'm sure, to this day. And that was 10 years, 15, 12 years ago, whatever it was.
And these stories these kids told, I mean, they had no reason to fabricate to me. I'm not sentencing them. I'm perhaps the only judge they ever saw who wasn't.
Right, that's why I wanted to do what I did.
So they had awful stories as to what had happened in their lives. And so coming out on the golf course was a different experience for them, because they had not, some of them, you're right. We're going from day to day, from one relative to the next.
Not even having a bed to sleep in.
And it was, so this was a different experience for them. And golf, remember, I think it's fair to say, it's a consequential environment. The ball goes where you hit it. You can't blame you don't blame the clubs. You don't blame
your teammate who dropped the ball.
Correct. I mean, so you now have to discipline yourself to put yourself in the appropriate motion to be able to do that, and when you do it, it can, when they see how far they can hit that.
Oh, the littlest improvement shows too. And it happens, it's funny because a business guy, a mentor of mine, once told me, he says, what you need to do when you hire people is take them on a golf outing. Mm-hmm. He goes, you will learn so much in 4 hours on the golf course, how they handle pressure, how they handle failure, how they communicate with you. Do they cheat? Are they, you will find out so much on a golf round. If you really are into hiring somebody very important, you don't waste an hour and do these, because they're all prepared for that shit. Mm-hmm. He goes, bring them on a golf course. Let them relax for a little bit and see what that 4 turns into a 3, or that 8 turns into a 7, and then you're going to see how he is. And I get that, I was always very good. You know me in golf. I might be a criminal, but in golf, I was legit, And, people, because I was a pretty good golfer. So, and I love the game. I respect the game. And what I came up with that, we're going to bring that back because of what you said. And, it's profound on everybody. And what we did find is you pairing you with 3 or 4 kids who are from the inner city, never seeing a judge, and then getting the attention from that judge for 2 hours, because we only played 9 holes. So 2.5 hours, and you
Mhm.
walked with them in the range, and they asked you a question. Before that, 8 days out, I remember them coming up to you, thank you, and they knew you. They actually got to know you. And I think that to me is amazing, And I think we need more of that with people of power, of law enforcement, with prosecutors, because we all get in our bubbles. You can call it what it is. You get in our bubbles. You see kids all the time. You get jaded. The kids get jaded. They see every time they see a cop, he's arresting his mother, his dad, his uncle, and before you know it, he hates every cop. And not every cop wants to do that. But obviously there is laws and stuff, and we have to. And again, then the bad ones overshadow, but they have bad friends too. So you got to, there's so many ways to use that what I did in a positive way, and I want to do that.
I think it helps some kids. I mean, it had some effect on some kids I know.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and let's say it didn't. Well, at least they're outside getting some exercise. They're walking around.
Well, I could tell you, I know for a fact, because I had a kid come up to me. He must have been 15 at the time. He's now married, I think he was. Hey, I went to one of your golf tournaments. I love that, man. I got an iPod. He won something. I forget what the hell he won, because remember I buy gift cards for everybody and did everything. So that's the parenting program. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of really, really good information, because you got to get the right people who are going to give good information and have the right demeanor. And that is what I've been picking. People with the demeanor and the knowledge, obviously. I have a good demeanor for this. You know that. And I don't get upset. I can get animated, but I don't get upset. I don't, nothing bothers me there, because it's an environment that I can handle. I understand it. And unless you understand it, you can't handle it. So it has to be the right people.
But I think you're right, Larry. It's easy for judges to become rather aloof, prosecutors to become
Jaded.
jaded, and so it's good to have that sort of connection outside of a courtroom with a child. It has a beneficial effect on us as well as hopefully the children.
Oh, absolutely. Now we're going to switch gears here, and we're going to get in a little bit of a debate. Well, you might not like me for this one. Nah, you're going to like me, because we just debate the law. What Judge Silverman was talking about, we had an argument, not an argument, debates always, about a law that happened back, maybe 6, 7 years ago, maybe. It was a case where they were taking people and bringing them to take their blood during a alcohol stop, correct?
Not exactly. Here was what was happening.
Now, I'm going to check you if you're wrong here.
Following a DUI arrest, the defendant had refused to undergo an approved breath test. So what the officer wanted to do was to to extract blood from the defendant. So what the officer did, this is an officer from Palm Bay, he sought the issuance of a warrant to extract blood this was a misdemeanor DUI case. And so he came to me and presented that warrant, and I signed it, because there was probable cause for me to believe that this would provide crucial evidence in terms of the prosecution of the case. So this was perceived to be much more intrusive, obviously, than
I'm surprised you didn't see that.
A breath test. Of course it was. But it was the nature of the warrant is it authorizes things to be done that would not otherwise be lawful.
But Judge,
you can't go into
you can't take a bullet out of a person without. You got to go through like an act of Congress.
He had a warrant, and so they went ahead and
No,
extracted
you
the blood.
signed the warrant. He had a piece of paper. It's not a warrant until you sign it.
It was. I signed it. It was a warrant.
Okay.
So then, what happened was, the case then came back to me. Oddly, and so I offered to recuse myself to have some other judge handle the motion hearing on this case because I had signed the warrant. But they were agreeable for me to do that, and I.
Oh, they didn't want to hear it? The circuit court didn't want to hear it?
No. I agreed to get some other county judge.
But weren't you were one of only a few that were doing it, correct?
Well, there were some judges who
because they
resistant
searched you out,
resistant to doing it. But ultimately, it took a long time. I really thought that was going to be addressed by the appellate court within months. It took years before that, they ultimately
Whatever
found
happens in months in the court system.
Well, well, I thought it was going to be appealed. That case was it was set up to be appealed, and the attorney didn't follow up on it. And so then the attorney, very conscientious, fine lawyer,
I know him,
took
yeah.
cases thereafter that had that issue, and I'm not sure that he was ever fully compensated for those, but he wanted to get that back up to the appellate court because he felt he was right and that this would be overturned. And he used to argue with me at bar meetings, other
Like me and you.
And so he ultimately got me thinking, gee, maybe I was mistaken about that. But I'd written a extensive order on this, and the practice was being picked up by other places, Pensacola, Sarasota.
Oh, in the state of Florida.
Correct, in the state of Florida for this.
Was this decided in any other states? I didn't know that.
Yes, other states, and I quoted other states as well, where that had similar implied consent laws that they permitted warrants to be issued. Now, what they didn't have was this. They didn't have a law that limited the ability to get a search warrant for a misdemeanor case. And so that's what the real issue was in our case. And so what the appellate court ultimately held, and this was where you were saying they're not gonna permit this in misdemeanor cases. It's got to have some prior conviction. Ultimately, the appellate court held that it required 2 convictions and it had to be a felony type case before they would uphold the extraction of blood in a DUI case for evidentiary purposes. So you were correct about that, and I will tell you, Larry, by that ruling. I'll tell you why. The Fourth Amendment involves a balance, right? I mean, there's a societal concerns and there's privacy concerns, and so you're reconciling both of those. And the greater the sort of violation that you're talking about, the greater intrusion that you might be warranted under the Fourth Amendment. So there was a symmetry to the district court's opinion, which I thought was not unreasonable.
Now, did it take? I know, obviously, the ruling was that we used to debate the ruling all the time because I agreed with Brian, wasn't it? No, who's the attorney? You can name his name. Oh, obviously, good. He's a win.
He's a very fine lawyer,
Yeah,
Ernie Chang.
Ernie Chang, that's right, Ernie. So I remember, I might even talk to Ernie one time. We were talking at some event we were at, and I said to, I don't get this one because the intrusion into your body is like a federal. I mean, that's like a big no-no in the feds, really. It takes an act of Congress to get a federal judge to sign, even take a bullet out of you. It really does. They consider that the most intrusive of things you can do to somebody. Worse than a house or anything. It's your body. It's your person. And when you did it, did you ever think, I could be wrong. I don't need the court to tell me I'm wrong. I'm going to stop doing this.
Well,
Were you too hard-headed? Be honest.
I think we're talking about the same balance. I will tell you, I think that the prosecution for DUI cases has become much more problematic as a result of the widespread use of marijuana. How do you tell whether somebody's on marijuana or cocaine unless you can extract blood to test that?
You can't even do it with blood, though.
But
blood is not going to tell you if that minute you're high, even with cocaine.
You can have, that's true. What some states have done, though, Larry, is that they have developed a threshold that you can't be driving with any amount that's found in your system, or some specific amount. So
No, I get what the law's changing on the end, but there's no test that can say. See, alcohol test, you could say he is drunk right now. That blood alcohol can tell you if you're inebriated at that point, not yesterday. If it's in your blood, it affects your equilibrium. It affects all the motor skills that you need to drive a safe vehicle or fly a plane or whatever it is going to be. Now, if you do marijuana 3 days ago or cocaine 3 days ago and it's out of your system, but it's still in there for blood, you're not high. So why should you be held? Again, I'm a believer in drugs. You know that. Not that I'm a drug addict. And I've had 2 doctors on this show together say that all drugs should be legal because we're picking and choosing winners when you can go to the pharmacy, go to a paint store and huff paint and get as high or stupid as any other drug out there.
Larry, for
We're not going to debate drugs. You know, I will fight you on that.
alcohol testing used to be the threshold was 0.1, and now it was reduced later on to 0.08. What's in your system? It is a societal value that's important to us to suppress the rate of deaths and injuries as a result of driving
you're now
intoxicated.
trying you're letting the government play God.
But I'm saying that was what the government did because of the societal concern about that. So you can, and other states have, said if you're driving with even any amount of alcohol or cocaine or marijuana or cocaine in your system, even if is not affecting you, it nonetheless is a crime in order to prevent the possibility of that happening, of you being under the influence of a narcotic. So, I mean, I understand that the concern for privacy and for the, but on the other hand, there's this other societal concern about the driving. You know, years ago, Larry, when I began as a prosecutor,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Heavy drinking was a legitimate lifestyle approach. I mean,
well, I mean, it depends on where you're at. I mean, obviously, in an alcoholic family, it's going to be. But I would see
jurors there, and I'd be prosecuting some DUI case, and they'd say, "But for the grace of God, there goes I." And so it was difficult, and so only through a massive public education campaign, the Mad Mothers,
Mothers Against Drunk Driving, yeah.
Were they able to and mandatory penalties? Were they able to suppress the tragedies resulting from driving while intoxicated?
See, I'm disagreeing with you because you're saying it worked. I don't know if it was that or the safety measures from NASCAR or, you know, the cars and motor vehicles were a lot safer now they than they ever were in the history of them. Back then they had, you know, cars, no seatbelts if they had them, you know, you could say it's because of that. I could push back on that because I don't believe it. I think there's more people on the road, obviously. There's more people with safer cars. So if you say it's lower, I disagree. I'm going to push back on it.
You know, Larry, I think driving used to be very much of a privilege. And there's a lot of people now, Larry, who shouldn't have driver's license.
Well, most women.
No,
I better not say. I'm gonna get canceled.
Larry, that's wrong. And
Of course,
unfair,
I'm only kidding.
But I'm just saying.
People know I okay, women and people over 70, and women. I'm only kidding on all of that, and that isn't me. How can that be me? But you're right. No, I agree. I'm only kidding everybody out there.
You know, I say that on court from time to time myself. You know. I've had occasionally the lawyer would say, "Can I approach the bench?" May I approach the bench? I said, "No." I'm just kidding.
You're funny. But no, I'm just saying I don't know if it was that. And our case and what your case was, obviously, I was very adamant against it. I said, "There's no way they should do it, even for a felony." And I was actually right because it took 2 felonies or two.
No, to take two misdemeanors.
2 misdemeanors, you know. Tell them what happened on the case.
Right. As I say, it took 2 misdemeanors within a certain time frame to create it to enhance DUI into a felony, and only then can blood be extracted pursuant to a warrant.
You know, I thought the only really way they can extract blood is, of course, if somebody got killed or bodily injury.
That's another exception. I'm sorry, that would be a felony as well.
Right, if vehicular homicide, obviously, if somebody dies or something like that. We all know. Listen, as I tell people, as I get older, and I was a crazy driver. Listen, a vehicle's a weapon. It's a big thing. It's 3,000, 4,000 pounds, and obviously, you know, you shouldn't be inebriated. You shouldn't be going down the road. You should have your faculties. But I've seen people. Listen, I got hit by a lady going 70 miles an hour. I remember my truck got rolled over.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she was inebriated or not, but she didn't get charged with anything. And so what happened there? You know, so I'm just a very hard person. that believes that the government should come in and do all of these rules to safeguard us when we should either be safeguarding ourselves or like helmet rule, or I don't believe in that. The seatbelt rule, I don't believe in that. Now they can put wait, Dave, they can put laws in place that say to insurance companies, hey, listen, if you put it in there and you don't want to insure them or you don't want to pay and they don't have it and they can prove that they didn't have a seatbelt on, we're not going to pay. My point is, I'm a libertarian. I've become really more so every day because both parties suck. And
Larry, I can't agree with
why can't you agree with that?
Larry, it's a good thing to have people wear a seatbelt. I think it's a thing that
It's not. I'm not saying it
is
doesn't save
proven-
lives.
it is
I
proven-
wear one. I wear one. My point to you is I don't like the government telling me what to do all the time. When does it stop?
Right. I know. I think that's a legitimate question. I mean, that's a good
Like you're saying,
question.
well, just like the doctor said to me here on this show, two very well doctors, and you know one of them, the other you don't know. He's a very, very astute doctor. You might know of him. And he's a blood doctor. And he said to me, I don't care what it is, fentanyl. He goes, you can get anything more powerful right at a pharmacy. You can get it right at a Home Depot or something. If you want to hurt yourself, why are we picking and choosing lose people? So, well, we could have cocaine, but you can't have acid. They are using now, I don't know if you knew this, they are using acid and mushrooms as one of the biggest PTSD rehabilitation things in Mississippi State University. There's whole programs how the government lied, really did, about the effects, how it's going to be in long term and everything. And we just buy everything, just like COVID. I don't know what bullshit was in COVID that everybody just believed everything they said. I had people washing their fruit and leaving their mail at their door for 3 days, and I'm going, have we all lost our mind?
Larry, fentanyl is a terrible drug. It's being used to enhance other drugs. And
David,
children-
weed killer is a terrible drug, and it kills kids. Did you know there's more things that kill people than fentanyl? So, I mean, it's not like that's the kill-all or yes,
I'm not
the
saying
media
that.
and people overdo things to the point. Listen, I'm not a supporter of people doing fentanyl, of course. You know that. But my point to you is I think what has happened is we have gotten to the point where we have to have the government tell us what's right. You know, we have so many laws on the books that are wrong, in my opinion, that we need common sense laws.
I will say this. I will agree with you on this.
We always get to this point. I love it.
Well, the government was not candid with people about drugs for a long time. I remember, you remember there used to be public service announcements with these 2 eggs that were cracked on a griddle, and they said,
great.
this is your mind,
Right,
this is your
brain
brain
on drugs and
okay,
frying it.
well, look, I think that sort of thing with respect to telling people the effects of marijuana was not candid. It wasn't honest with them. I think had they told people up front, look, you use marijuana regularly, you're apt to have, you have a 9% chance of an
They
addiction.
didn't know it.
They had studies sufficient to have identified this, and they could have told them about the potential for respiratory problems, other memory
Yeah,
problems.
obviously with the
other
smoke,
issues. Had
yeah.
they just told them that, I think up front they would have preserved the integrity and the honesty. I saw a public service announcement about marijuana. It said, I smoked a joint last night. I didn't get cooked on heroin today. I wasn't killed in some way. I spent 11 hours on Pete's couch.
Ate 2 pizzas.
So I think that's a more candid explanation.
Here's my problem. The government, and we know this. Did you know what got me so pissed? You know I had a heart issue at one point. You know that. I'm doing great, feel great, have great doctors, thank God. I'm the best health I think I've ever in a long time. And
Thank God.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I know you were there for me. I remember you coming here. You know, it pisses me off that I read some great articles from friends, and we all talk about it all the time. Did you know the Heart Association knew that the food pyramid should be upside down since the 70s? The food pyramid, if anybody doesn't know, is where they put the pyramid up and say you're supposed to, all the bottom were breads, and then the next one were this, and then on the top of protein. Well, it literally should be upside down for a healthy heart. And did you know they knew that? They knew that, and they didn't do anything about it because it's a money thing. And it kind of makes you really, listen, I know a lot of doctors, you know that. And we talk about medicine all the time. And don't get me wrong, these guys are the best in their business. They're very good. We talk candidly. We know what's bullshit and what's not. And I just don't believe everything the government said. And listen, I follow the law. Everybody knows that. I'm not going to do something stupid. But I don't believe that we as a society should be such sheep being led to slaughter, so to speak. Everything the government said, don't go to work, don't do this, stop this. You know, I'm a believer in Governor DeSantis, and I'll tell you why. I don't ever push this on anybody. Governor DeSantis, you can like him or hate him. It's not about that. It's not about politics even. He actually does a lot of liberal things, if you want to call them that. He gave money to the Florida Everglades. He gave teachers raises. So don't listen what he says, listen what he does. But what I liked about him more than anything is he gave the information out about COVID that were needed to be go out. And he didn't shut this state down. He didn't mandatory you couldn't go to work like New York or California or do these crap. He did what he can, he vaccinated elderly as much as he thought that they needed it, and he gave them the information, he gave them the ample weight to get it and everything else. Where some people said, no, the government should shut that, should do this, no, stop letting other people make common sense decisions. Listen, if you're sick, stay the fuck home. Period. I don't get mad. I just get when we are leaving common sense and letting the government or letting the courts, I don't care who it is. I question things, but you know me as a very logical man. Dave, you've changed my mind many times. I tell people this all the time.
Well,
And I do mean this.
you know-
I tell people, I gotta get off my chest. I tell this all the time, Dave. With people, I love debate, and if you could change my mind, I will change, and I will. If I can change yours, I hope you're willing to change. The hard-headed people are just stuck on whatever it is, and then I just walk away a little bit. But I will listen to a logical debate back at me, whether it's the law or whether it's golf, whatever it is, and discuss it. And if you can change my mind, I'm very willing to change. I'm at that point in life. Listen, I'm going to be 62. Can you believe that shit, man? I don't even know that. I feel young. But my point to you is, I just don't like the courts telling, again, the blood or anything.
Well,
Not
Larry,
that
first of all, I can't comment on anything political. You know that.
I know that.
But-
I'm not asking you
but-
for political.
but
I
will-
never did.
But I will.
I know
agree-
your political stances.
No, I can't.
I know.
But let me see what I do agree with in terms of what you've said. You know, you look over history and you see how societies have failed. You know, you see what happened to the Roman Empire. You see how the internal dissension and if historians look back and if America fails, what they're going to say is that people lost their common sense.
Very true.
You know, I think that's the thing that they would look at in terms of what happened here. Why aren't we able to function and go on and prosper and be a very fulfilling sort of society? Well, I agree that people need to use their common sense, and that involves questioning the official version of things, which there's no problem with doing that. If I had a juror who said, I accept the official version of everything, well, okay, how are you going to, how are you going to be fair?
Well, I have a question for you on that with the judges as a judge. This is a good question. I'm glad you said that. If you have a person who comes in front of you and he says, Your Honor, I didn't do it. I want to go to trial. If he goes to trial and he loses, do you hold him anymore?
No.
You really don't? Because you know they do. You know what happens. They threaten you. If you go to trial, this judge is going to hammer you. You wasted his time. He's going to give you 3 times the amount of. I know that. I've been in courts.
I will tell you, I don't view it that way.
Good.
I
I
really
really mean that, and I believe you.
I mean,
First of all, I believe
I really don't. I think, look, people really have a right to do this, and I think that there's a valuable societal thing, whatever the outcome is. You know, and I say this to jurors too when I have a chance to speak to them after the case. If they have given the case the care and attention it deserves, if somebody has been able to go through this process and they have availed themselves of this right, that's justice. That ensures that our society has a judicial system that works and that is for all the people.
And I'm a
I mean,
believer in our
so
jury system. You know that.
so I,
Big
I
time.
do believe that. And so I think that it's what keeps our system vital. There are less jury trials now than the rate of them is decreasing.
I know. And
So,
you know, my thing is, you know what I tell first time attorneys? You're gonna love this. They give an attorney. I said, you know what you guys do all wrong? The first thing you do in there, and I know why you do it, so I'm gonna tell you how messed up you are. And they look at me, what does he know? Oh, I know. I said, the first thing you do is you waive speedy trial. The first thing you all do is waive speedy. And I know why you do it, because you want to make more money. But stop it. A lot of times, speedy trial, it helps the defendant, obviously, especially in state cases. Because in state cases, they'll arrest first. This is all known. Obviously, we did a lot of federal work. The state cases, we'd go back and fight the state cases for, because enhancement in sentencing, so we do that. And most of the time, states charge before having the full case ready. The feds don't play. Once they arrest you, they got their fucking case pretty much locked up. Now, the states usually don't, and before you know it, you do not pass speedy trial off, and you also make sure you have a hearing for your bail, whether they deny it or not, because you can get information out of that hearing. I says so many times I found out my own case that, oh shit, it was bigger than I thought by my bail hearing. Now, if I didn't know that, I would have, couldn't have hid all my money in guns and no, I'm only kidding everybody. I'm only kidding everybody. I'm joking, of course. My point is to you is I think obviously our society gets into ruts and stuff. And listen, I am the biggest American. I believe in our system. I love the jury system. I do believe that your judge's system should not be an elected official. I really think they should be some way where they don't have to go out and actually raise money or do something to be a judge. Because I love the federal system where, hey, listen, when you have a federal judge will tell the president of the United States, no, he's secure in his job.
well, we have a hybrid system here in Florida. County judges are
You're elected.
well, they're appointed to fill a vacancy. So if a judge
Yes, but you have to.
but then within 2 years they're running for election. That's true. But judges on the appellate court and on the Florida Supreme Court have what is called merit retention. They run, but they run against themselves.
Yeah,
It's-
but
it's-
nobody knows, unless you get a lawyer or a guy like me who has a platform and he says, we got to get rid of a judge. And I just go all out. And I mean, everything I talk about is this bum judge, bum judge, bum judge, bum judge. Nobody's going to know the name, even the name. And you know that.
I'll tell you what has happened in some other states. It hasn't happened to my knowledge in Florida, but there are PACs, political action committees,
Yes.
that get a substantial amount of dark money, anonymous funding, to go after a judge, to challenge that judge later on.
Even one of the sitting judges who, for the
Yes,
merit
one of
to
the
attention.
But see, oftentimes the challenge has nothing to do with the judge himself. I mean, they say one of two things: always negative campaigning. These dark money campaigns against the judge, and I've seen this. And I've presented on this to Eastern Florida State College.
You actually teach new judges too.
I
You
have-
actually.
So what they do is they say the judge is either on the take or the judge is soft on crime. And so it does, but it may be the insurance lobby that's actually generating this because the judge has made some favorable ruling to some plaintiff in a personal
Yeah.
injury case. But that's what they would say, and they are not bound by the same ethics that a judge would be able to, that binds a judge in terms of the veracity of what they have to say. They can say all sorts of things, twisting this, misrepresenting significantly the judge's.
Well, listen, candidates on both sides there, I'll do that all the time. But in my opinion, that's why I like the federal system. When you're appointed, you are a judge, tough. I mean, unless you get impeached. But there could be a way that, one, I also don't believe in life appointments. So maybe a 12-year appointment, maybe a 10-year appointment, like they do with the FBI, director of FBI is a 10-year appointment. Whatever position, that's the only 10-year appointment. But I think there should be some number. Listen, when our forefathers figured this country, I mean, you got to take, they didn't even have term limits, but the first president that ever went for more than 2 terms is Roosevelt. So when you take that and you look at the presidents that quit, they did it because they did public service and everything else that went along with that.
They wanted, I believe, a conservative body, our founding fathers in the court system. They wanted some group that was going to be above the political fray, that were not going to be
Agreed.
subject to the whims of the populace. So their solution in achieving this was a lifetime appointment. That judge was going to be immune from any such
So
influences.
why do you think the states then picked
But
up
see,
and elected a position?
Larry, I think that's a good value. I think that they had some insight into doing that, and it served us well. We have a much longer life expectancy now than we had then, and we've learned a lot about how people assimilate information as they get older than they knew then. So I think that there's a tension between wanting to have somebody who has the sort of insight and knowledge that would be really help an incisive judge do things, and also to have that being apart from those influences. So there's a tension between those things. So the states achieve this in different ways. Some have term limits, some have age limits, some have they do this in different ways to try to achieve these two somewhat inconsistent ends.
I totally agree, because I am a believer in our whole entire setup of government, with the legislative and the executive and the judicial branches of governments. And you know, I love a history. I studied it, I read it, I've read encyclopedias. That's how crazy I had a lot of time. But anyway, I love what you're saying, because one, and you know how I believe in the judges system. I accept the judge. Listen, nobody's perfect, obviously, and I don't want people to think anybody's perfect, because they're not. But they do their level best, I think, most judges, and I know you do. I've been in your courtroom, I've seen you. I remember even talking to you off the bench and actually helped change your mind about bail, if you remember that.
We talked a lot about that. We did.
And you kept saying, well, I don't want the person to, do drugs again. I said, Judge, you're only hurting the family who's putting up the money. And you were open to talking about it.
And we should be. And judges should always, again, that's another situation where, in terms of judging, what are you considering in terms of bail? You're considering one.
Well, there's only two real reasons, and that's the threat to the community and flight risk.
Correct. Well, you're considering somebody's liberty here and their right to a reasonable bail under the Sixth Amendment, and then the concerns for their being a flight risk and their potential danger to the community. So you're putting all this in, and judges strike balances between these things on different positions, and some have different
Viewpoints,
concerns about viewpoints in particular cases. And so, when you have somebody, the bail is apt to be different between somebody who is, a major trafficker in narcotics.
Let's call it accused a major trafficker.
Accused
Let's
major
not
trafficker.
say O.J. Simpson's innocent.
He's-
Look at the smile on his face if you guys want to see that.
Of course it's accused, Larry. I mean, obviously, people are presumed innocent from the moment they are arrested, and even before that.
But you know as well as I do, people make prejudgments just by nature. Guy gets arrested for molesting a 2-year-old. I want to kill him before he even goes to trial, just if he's accused. It's wrong, and I know that. But my point is that I think that has to affect you as a judge.
The seriousness of the offense, Larry, is a legitimate consideration in determining what the bail is. And so,
absolutely. Yeah.
and the potential for somebody who may have a propensity to doing some criminal act.
I'd hate to see me be arrested. They'd say I have a propensity for everything.
Well,
Don't laugh. Don't say.
Larry, it's a matter of judgment that judges have to decide. So it comes to you on a case-by-case basis, and you have to do this. Now, remember, everybody who's arrested here in Brevard County comes before a judge within 24 hours.
Yeah.
The Constitution...
Isn't it 48?
The Constitution requires 48,
Okay.
but we do it...
I thought it was 40. I was telling the young Nick here this morning, I said, what a judge does, because I'll talk to you about it later, about first appearances and stuff. I thought it was 48.
Well, no, it is 48. That's the constitutional requirement,
Okay.
but we do it within 24 to
Wow.
try and make sure we comply with this. And so it's a determination that's made. You can watch it yourself on the sheriff's streaming video live.
We're going to do something with
And
that.
so, but that's a determination that's not final. I mean,
Sure,
the
and you
trial-
you can actually have a another hearing about
correct.
it.
The
Sure.
trial judge has the authority to overrule that, and oftentimes an attorney can, once they've been appointed, just on the spot there, given the opportunity, they can marshal evidence and another presentation to the trial judge that may very well induce that judge
Or
to
even to you, right?
maybe, but remember they've just been appointed moments before.
Yeah,
so-
I mean, listen. If I got arrested, I'd have a lawyer who knew me coming to that first appearance. I'm not gonna have the guy that's comes up to me.
Well, when I was in the public defender's office in the Capitol Division, and I learned that one of my future clients was about to be appearing in first appearance, I was there on the spot because I wanted to avoid them making some unwary statement that could later be
Sure.
used against them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So that's
They swear them in, yeah.
well, and so what happens, Larry, at first appearance, I think you have to recognize the dynamics of this. Somebody's been arrested, guilty or innocent, okay? They've been put into a holding cell, which is like a metal shelf, right?
I think I know what they are.
And so, but they're sitting there all night, and God knows who's next to them, and so they haven't got any sleep. They're sleep deprived. Their minds are whirring a mile a minute. What am I going to say? I only get like 2 minutes in front of the judge.
I gotta go home.
It was an accident. I have an alibi. It was self-defense. Okay. So then they're apt to come up and say things that would be factual admissions and conclusory denials, but then factual admissions that would be ultimately used against them. So I think that part of the role of the attorney at first appearance is to dissuade people from making such statements, at least the defense attorney, I mean. And so I wanted to do that on behalf of my clients when I was at the public defender's office.
But you knew, Dave, you're a seasoned attorney. All attorneys should know that. I tell people, anybody, if you ever get arrested, shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. There's no benefit to talk. None. Zero. Because if they're going to arrest you, they're going to arrest you. Now you can go from there. But get an attorney before you say a word. First of all, I tell them, listen, the cop can't do anything for you. If you want to tell a cop, go fuck himself, you can do that. If you want to go fucking tell an attorney, a prosecutor, go fuck him, you could. Don't tell the judge. I used to say, because I was in federal court. And, federal judges are God. I watched a young man go in front of a judge, federal judge. And we were in the jury boxes. And we're waiting. And this kid was facing, I think, 12 to 24 months. Very short sentence in federal court. Well, he starts going off on the judge. This is bullshit. And he's going, this is bullshit. Why is this happening? I mean, I got no representation. I don't consider this a kangaroo court. And I'm sitting there knowing the law. And I'm laughing. Now, this kid is facing 12 to 24, some very, very minor amount of time. So what happened is the judge goes, are you done? He goes, no, really? And he goes on. Judge, I'm sitting there while I'm saying, this is going to be good. The judge gives the guy 120 months, which is 10 years in jail. Obviously, it's outside the valid guidelines. He's going to win an appeal. I know this process. But when he did that, the kid went to a maximum security prison because of the length of the time. We find out later years, it took him 3 years to get back in court and win the case and get it overturned and get out in about almost 4 years where I'm not kidding you, because he pissed off a federal judge. I learned a lesson there I will never forget. You want to fuck with someone, fuck with them. Don't fuck with a federal judge. And federal judges.
Larry, I've seen even state court judges do that.
I never seen a state court.
I was a state prosecutor, and I had a client, a defendant, who was there in front of a judge. This man had a significant history of alcohol-related offenses.
This guy.
And so the judge was sentencing him. He said, "Sir, you are clearly an alcoholic." And the guy said, "No." Well, the judge said, "Well, you have an alcohol problem, don't you?" He said, "Not at all." The judge said, "You can tell me." The judge is no longer, he's passed away. said, you can tell me, look, I'm an alcoholic myself. And so you can share this with me. He said, I don't care if you're a drunk. I'm not.
Telling the judge this.
So the judge said, well, you're a drunk, but you haven't reached bottom yet. But I'm going to help you do that. So he gave him.
Was he calm like that?
Yes, the judge said, I'm going to help you hit bottom. And so he gave him a sentence that was ultimately overturned. It was years in prison. It was. And I said, Judge, he said, Mr. Silverman, I've just ruled. Okay.
Enough, meaning.
He said, I'm giving him the sentence because you're right, Larry. He really thought that this was going to help him in some way because he had to change his attitude about this. But that was not the right approach to it. I agree. I mean, that was clearly inappropriate, but he felt from his own experience. I mean, judges are people.
That's my point. But my point is, the federal judge's power is pretty much.
Oh yes.
Don't fuck with him. I tell people, listen, I'm telling you, I've been around federal. I sat next to a federal judge on a plane, and we had the greatest conversation. He goes, you're really smart. He goes, he complimented me. We were talking about the federal law 2255 and how we win them and what would it fix it and how we get it. He goes, I actually like, John, Antone told me this too. He goes, I actually like reading when you guys are good. He goes, because it's entertaining and you are point on and you don't have to use legalese, which is called, lawyers have to use certain things, otherwise they get in trouble. Us, they, just don't be crazy, but be openly. Like I used to say, this is bullshit. At one point in there where, that's it. And I said, it's obvious, this, and this. And you to put a Supreme Court case, the circuit case, and that's it. You don't go crazy. And they go, this guy's right. And Rick, you know what he said, though, the judge? He goes, you didn't get that to me at first. You know that, right? He goes, you got that to my clerk. Because my clerk reads all those first. And he brings them to me. He goes, I very rarely have to read them all. I get the ones that have the meat and potatoes. He goes, our clerks are usually, like a federal clerk must be probably a seasoned lawyer. I don't know how that works exactly.
Well, Larry, I agree. The important thing is, when you're dealing with on the appellate level, is to get them interested. If they're not interested it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're great. It's like picking a jury. The cases are often won or lost in jury selection.
Absolutely.
Because if the jury doesn't care about what you're saying, then what difference does your evidence make?
Nothing.
So you have to get them to care about your position and about yourself. And so that's why, advocacy is an art form.
A big thing. And before we go, it just reminded me of a case that you and I was sitting in your courtroom once, and I watched an attorney who picking a jury. I almost fell out of my chair. And I asked you afterward, you go, wow. And we just looked at each other. This guy was berating people from New York, and half the people on the jury pool, more than half, were from New York. And he lost the case.
Well, occasionally.
That was the funniest thing I saw in the courtroom.
I think it's hard for lawyers. They're trying to have a rapport with jurors.
You're being nice.
They're trying to establish some relationship with them and gain one of that you can rely on what I'm saying. You can trust and credibility, and when you have somebody who has a belief. Now you start out with somebody. The lawyers have to have an open mind about this. But if you start with a prejudice, you believe that all right, people from New York are
criminals,
fundamentally flawed, and and they're real troublemakers and criminals, or excessively liberal or whatever, and then it starts welling up, resentment, and so one after another seem to come from New York or had some connection to New York, or they
funniest thing I've seen.
And so but you don't argue with them. My goodness, what's but on the other hand, it's hard when you're on the spot. You're trying to do this, and you're just not getting any connection to these folks.
Judge, I gotta say this before I do. You're just the nicest guy in the world. Because I said it like that guy's a fucking moron. The guy couldn't. We're not mentioning names, but the guy. I looked at this case. I go, if this guy wins this case, there's really something wrong with our system. He lost that case. Now, before we go, because we've been on a while, man. I can't believe how time flies with you. Really does. What do you have to say to people about our system of government? about what's going on. Your final kind of thoughts on that? I mean, where do you think we are in a place right now?
You know, I think that people should recognize and appreciate the value of their judicial system. I mean, we have a system in America that we should be proud of in terms of our judicial system, and they should feel privileged to participate as jurors in that system. You know, it is. I think many people feel that this is the most magnificent expression of our democracy. You know, serving as a juror is one of the most important civic responsibilities they'll be called upon to perform. But I think that we should recognize that our judicial system, Larry, cures all sorts of problems. I mean, we have all sorts of problems in our society. You know, we're living in a very divisive time, but I think that with the bulwark of our judicial system and our jury system, I think it helps cure all sorts of ills.
You know, that's a great way to end because I'm going to agree, and I want to thank you for coming here today. You're right, and I never even thought about it that way because you're watching our divisiveness go right now into politics, but you
I'm
see
not
this.
commenting
I'm
on
not either.
politics.
I
I'm
didn't
not-
ask you to do
I'm
it.
not talking about politics.
Listen, I'm talking about what's going on and how our jury system and how our court systems is actually handling a case of the biggest magnitude in the history of the country
Larry, I'm not
ever.
talking about.
I'm not either.
See?
I'm not even going to mention a name. I'm saying you're right. When I think about the jury system, and you know I'm a big supporter of the jury system, I'm a big believer in court system. I know I've been around people a long time, and there are good judges, bad judges, lean judges, hard judges. I mean, we used to name the judge. My judge was Hang 'em High Giles. You know, I mean, there were different names and things. And you know what? But when you look back at them, they did what they did, and it wasn't out of bounds. It wasn't wrong. You might have a little bit of a difference here or there. And I do think they get it right. I've been watching a lot of cases on TV, just like the cases that I watch. And I'm talking about like the murder case in South Carolina and this kind of stuff. I watch them a lot because I comment on them. I always watch the judge, and I watch what they do and how they do it. And I've watched a lot of you guys. Obviously, I come up to the court. Sometimes when I come up a couple hours early, and I sit in the courtroom. Sometimes I just hear the hearings, which I like better than actual court, because I hear the judges call out cops and call out things. I think when we lose that, then we're going to be in real trouble in this country. And I don't think we have lost that. I don't think. And everybody asked me, what do you think the Supreme Court's divided? I said, no. I'll tell you why. The weight of that office. And John Roberts, Chief Judge, proved it to me when he went with Obama on the Obamacare, when everybody in the world thought he would just go political and do his thing. You know what, Dave? That showed me that the weight of that office, no matter what, once they're a Supreme Court justice, I don't care who they are, the weight of that office as long as they are a decent person when they sit in that bench, I think that we're going to be okay.
I'm just talking about our courthouse here, okay? I'm talking about justice.
Well, I'm not. You said our whole society, and
okay.
I agree.
Look, it's the Moore Justice Center, right? Right? So no, when you go through in courthouses, you typically see some symbol of justice. It's an ancient Roman goddess Justitia,
The
blindfold,
scales, everything.
Scales, sword in one hand, scales in the other, right? Okay, at the Moore Justice Center, when you go through the magnetometer, you would see a statue, a relief on the wall that has scales, but the scales aren't balanced. Okay, it depicts Harry and Harriet Moore, early civil rights pioneers. And they're reaching up, straining to grasp the scales. Okay, one message from that unique sculpture is that justice doesn't descend majestically from above. It emerges from the jury system, and it recognizes how important jury service is to our society. I'm talking about this on this level, Larry. I'm not talking about some political
I'm
issue.
not talking political. I'm not talking
I'm
politics.
just talking about.
I haven't watched TV because I hate politics.
How important and how valuable this is. And you know, as I say, my father was a lawyer, and when I was a kid, I used to play under the big mahogany desk there in his law office at 1 North LaSalle in Chicago, and I didn't, you know, the practice of law was very different then, right? It was cigar smoke and carbon paper. People don't even know what that is anymore. Typewriters, And so I didn't know what was going on. We had models of barges, because he was doing admiralty law. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was important. He would always come in with interesting stories, and it was just a very valuable thing to do. And I knew that early on, and I believed that all my life.
Hey, what's up? We got Sammy coming in. That's the partner with the cigars.
I didn't.
Yes. No. You are perfect. We are good. This is the real deal. This is what happens here. Everybody. That's why we call it the real deal. People come and go. My mom, the Garfield, the mailman. He's known now around the neighborhood. It's really fun. But you said it. And you said it correctly. That's a great thing because, and I am going to bring it one level up. Martin Luther King, all of those people believed in our court systems, and that's the way they fought things. And I think we should do that too. I think it should stay there, and it should not be so divisive between people, and arms shouldn't be up, and I think that's the problem. But I think more people of intelligence need to be pushing what you just said, and it really is. I wish I could be a juror. It's a shame I can't. Obviously, as a felon, they won't let me. But I try to instill into young people. And you know what they say to me? Why should we vote? Because you used to buy politicians. I said, don't go by me in my old days. I really mean, I wish they would get involved more. I'm not saying being a lawyer. I'm not saying to do that. I think we have too many of those. I think we need more people who just care about society with common sense. You know why? Because on a jury, and you know this, common sense prevails. And if you go into a jury and you're not swayed, you have your own mind, and guilty or not guilty is your choice. Nobody can change it, and there's no right and wrong. And I think that's important.
Well, it's perfectly agreeable for jurors to change their minds after deliberating and harmoniously with other jurors and talking about it. That's why they have a collective wisdom to the jury system that has proven to be a really resilient feature of our society.
Well, some people push back on that and say we need professional jurors. You do know that. I know. I don't buy that. I just think we need people who pick the jurors the right way, because that's, like you said, it's a big part of the case.
Jury selection is a very important part of.
We're there. Okay. With that said, thank you very much, Judge. I really appreciate it. Everybody out there, I had a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
I love talking to Judge Silverman. We've been friends for a long time. We love to, and we actually do this when we go to dinner or a lunch or something like that. And I got something coming I got to talk to him about. Anyway, everybody, please make good choices. We don't want to see you get in trouble. If you pass the word, everybody, you can watch this. Also, it's on Spotify. It's on all major platforms. Check it out. We got a lot coming up. Please make good choices. And hold on. Let's get this right here. And we're going to see where we're going to be at. But thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Larry.
We really appreciate you.